Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. I am Naisa Mani and the assigned topic for me is the translation, which is one of the classification of rigid body motions of kinematics of rigid bodies. So first is what is kinematics of rigid bodies? So kinematics of rigid bodies explain the terms such as acceleration, velocity, and position of objects. So there are 5 classification of rigid body motions. These are translation, rotation about a fixed axis, general plane motion, motion about a fixed point, and general motion. So the first motion is the translation. So what is translation motion? So when a body is shifted or moved from one point to another point, then the body is said to be experience translation motion. It is the motion in which all points of a moving body moved uniformly in the same line or direction. If an object is executing translation motion, then there is no change in its orientation relative to a fixed point. So there are 2 types of translation, the rectilinear translation and curvilinear translation. So when we talk about rectilinear, we are actually dealing with the particles that actually moving straight motion or path. So meaning the path could be a straight line. So for curvilinear, it is generally motion wherein a particle is actually following a certain curvature. In other words, the body is a curved path. So we have 3 equations for rectilinear and 2 equations for curvilinear. So para mas maintindihan pa natin ang translation of motion, let's have an examples.
So, example number 1, a truck traveling along a straight road at speed of 20 km per hour increases its speed to 120 km per hour in 15 seconds. So, question number 1, what is the constant acceleration? And question number 2, determine the total distance traveled.
So let's answer first the question number 1. So we will use the equation which is the final velocity equals initial velocity plus acceleration times time interval. Then after that, dahil naka kilometer per hour ang ating initial and final velocity, i-convert natin siya sa meter per seconds. So, for initial velocity, magiging 5.555 meter per second. At ang final velocity natin ay magiging 33.333 meter per seconds. So, after we convert it to meter per seconds, our next step will be substitution. Then, after we do the substitution, we can now have the answer. So, our acceleration is 1.85 meter per second squared.
So, for question number 2, determine the total distance traveled.
So, we will use the equation of displacement. And then, let's do the substitution. Then, after that, we can get the result, which is 291.67 meter.
So, example number 2, an automobile is driven at 30 meter per hour for 12 minutes, then at 40 meter per hour for 20 minutes, and finally at 50 meter per hour for 8 minutes.
So, the question is, calculate the average speed over the interval. So, ito yung ating given. So, ang hinahanap natin ay yung speed average. So our formula will be speed average equal total distance over total time. So we will have S1 plus S2 plus S3 over T1 plus T2 plus T3 equals to V1 times T1 plus V2 times T2 plus V3 times T3 over T1 plus T2 plus T3. So after that, isa-substitute na natin siya. So ito yung magiging result niya.
So, ang final answer natin ay 39 meter per hour.